for peace. President Donald Trump makes an official announcement regarding Memorial Day. We're at the White House. Back and forth. What Republicans and Democrats are saying about another coronavirus aid package. Moving forward, organizers of Italy's March for Life get creative after this year's event is canceled because of the COVID-19 crisis. And raising spirits. We introduce you to two Franciscan friars bringing Gregorian chant to a global audience. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, May 22nd, 2020. Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight, a major announcement from President Donald Trump. It has to do with our First Amendment right to worship. The pandemic shut down churches across the country, but tonight, new guidance is being issued to reopen church doors immediately. Correspondent Owen Jensen reports now from the White House. Owen?
President Donald Trump held a news conference earlier this afternoon here at the White House. A bit of a surprise because it wasn't on the schedule. And it's big news for churches and the faithful. The president says the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, is issuing brand new guidance so churches can reopen right away. And he issued this challenge to governors.
The governors need to do the right thing and allow these very important essential places of faith to open right now. For this weekend. If they don't do it, I will override the governors.
In recent days, the president has repeatedly pushed for churches to reopen, saying places of worship hold our society together and keep people united. People want to be there with their friends, and says church leaders love their congregants and will keep them safe.
Some governors have deemed liquor stores and abortion clinics as essential, but have left out churches and other houses of worship. It's not right. So I'm correcting this injustice and calling houses of worship essential.
For Catholics, of course, it's been a very hard time missing Masses Sunday after Sunday. Now, EWTN, as you know, has been airing Masses daily, and we've gotten lots of emails from viewers happy to have that spiritual connection. And on this Memorial Day weekend, as Americans don those masks and continue abiding by social distance rules, one thing's certain, the president wants those church doors open this weekend. Tracy?
Okay, thank you, Owen. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight. Before leaving for their Memorial Day recess, the Senate began to work to fast-track an extension of a popular lending program aimed at helping small businesses impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Correspondent Eric Rosales reports now from Capitol Hill. Eric?
Well, Tracy, it was just this week that Republican Senator Cory Gardner urged the Senate not to go into recess until it considered more COVID-19 aid. He also wanted an agreement to extend the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program, and he wasn't the only one. So now senators are on a fast track to make that happen and give small businesses more time.
The Senate stands adjourned until 9:30 a.m. on Tuesday, May 26, 2020.
The Senate is yet to finalize a deal that would extend the window to give borrowers 8 weeks more past the current May 29th deadline to spend their loans under the Paycheck Protection Program. It's an extension Senator Marco Rubio wants to see.
If we just had a straight up vote on whether or not we should change the bill to say instead of 8 weeks, you have 12 weeks or 16 weeks to spend money on payroll, it would probably get 99 or 98 votes.
Senator Rubio also says even with GOP support to extend the paycheck protection terms, two questions remain. Will Senate Democrats support it, and will the House follow suit? Meanwhile, some business owners who desperately need the money say the rules are confusing, so they've opted out of the government program.
Folks declined to take the money, and unfortunately, in some cases, they had to lay people off, which is the exact opposite, I think, of what you'd want to hear out of a program designed called the Paycheck Protection Program.
The fourth-generation family-owned Cold Spring construction company decided to give their $2.2 million small business loan back to the bank.
It's a classic bait and switch. The whole world changed. The whole purpose and the whole concept, in my mind, completely changed.
GOP senators say changes are coming.
There have been some hiccups and there have been some things that need to be fixed, and we ought to look at what we can do to refine it, make it work better, make it work more efficiently.
So after the Memorial Day recess, business owners will be looking to their senators to pass legislation to be able to give them more time. And as you heard, no matter how convoluted the situation is, as long as they follow the rules, they will not have to pay back the loans. Tracy?
Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill. Thank you. The Chinese Communist Party holds its massive annual Congress after a 2-month delay. China's premier tells the 3,000 representatives that China will work with the United States to implement phase 1 of the trade deal. Prime Minister Li also announced more stimulus spending to prop up the faltering economy after the shutdowns due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Chinese premier also announced a new security law aimed at punishing protesters. Pro-democracy groups in Hong Kong immediately hit the streets. A small group showed defiance. They were stopped by Hong Kong police and given fines, but were eventually allowed to march on the government liaison office and inside the Hong Kong legislature. Pro-democracy lawmakers sharply criticized the proposed security law. Scuffles broke out and a couple of legislators were forcibly dragged out of the chamber. A passenger plane with nearly 100 people on board crashed into a densely populated area of Pakistan's biggest city earlier today. 2 people reportedly survived. Cleanup continues after the plane slammed into a crowded neighborhood short of the runway in Karachi. The pilot reportedly sent out a Mayday warning that he lost both of engines. The plane was packed as Muslims are traveling home for tomorrow's Eid holiday, marking the end of Ramadan. A priest in Mexico who survived COVID-19 says while in the hospital, he witnessed how God is present in the midst of suffering. Father Antonio Perez shared a room with other patients and saw 4 of them die. But he says after giving them absolution, they were, quote, comforted and at peace. The sons of murdered Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi is forgiving the 5 Saudi government agents sentenced to death for the killing. One of the sons of the journalist announced on Twitter that he is forgiving those involved in the murder, in line with the Islamic tradition of forgiveness during Ramadan. Khashoggi was a harsh critic of the Saudi government. He was executed at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul back in 2017. The announcement means the 5 agents on death row will now get a reprieve. The coronavirus forced Italy's March for Life, which was scheduled for tomorrow, to be canceled. However, organizers managed to come up with a backup plan. Connected for Life will go online tomorrow afternoon. It will bring together virtually pro-lifers who have attended the rally in Rome. Abortion became legal in Italy in 1978. Tomorrow would have been the country's 10th pro-life march. It has now been postponed to 2021. Virginia Coda Nunziante, president of Italy's March for Life, joins us now from Rome. Virginia, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you, Tracy, for inviting us. I'm always so happy to be in EWTN.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad to have you. Virginia, tell us about Connected for Life. How did you come up with the idea and how many people will participate?
Well, the idea came, in fact, immediately after Easter, because we weren't so sure if the lockdown was still on, but in fact, so we realized after Easter that we would never be able to organize the real march, and so we also checked what other marches around the world were doing, and so we found out that it was a good idea to have a connected March for Life. And so we start working for this day of Connecting for Life, and that will take place tomorrow. And in fact, I think that there will be, of course, I'm not so sure how many now, but many tens of thousands of people connecting tomorrow for this hour of virtual March for Life.
Virginia, I know that you worked for Italy's March for Life since it began. How is the pro-life movement doing in that country?
Well, the pro-life movement in our country is very active, and I think it's a very good thing that there are many different associations doing different activities. Because in the pro-life world, but I think this is in every country, everybody can find its own way of working for life. So that different groups, different people working in associations, helping women. Doctors, but also in the juridical aspect. So there are many associations. But the March for Life is something a little bit different, in fact, because the March for Life started 10 years ago, and it was the very first event in the public square. And this, I think, was something very different from what has happened for 40 years in Italy.
And Virginia, I know that you came here to Washington for our March for Life this year. What did you think about the event, and did it give you any ideas maybe to use to your own event?
Well, of course, every time that I come to Washington, it is very inspiring, I must say. And so also this year, especially this year, having President Trump participating and giving this strong message, it gave us really much enthusiasm to go on in our march. Of course, things are difficult here in Europe, especially, but also in Italy, because the culture of death is very deep in the society, and so to fight for life is not easy. But seeing the results that US has done, that the March for Life in Washington has done in more than 40 years, gives us really the hope that it will happen the same also in Italy.
Well, Virginia, thank you so much for your time, for coming on, and also for what you do. We really appreciate it. Virginia Coda Nunziante, president of Italy's March for Life. Thanks again, Virginia.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy, and thank you all the listeners to EWTN.
Coming up, we hear from the head of the newest archdiocese in the United States. And a Catholic college in Wyoming is set to hold an in-person graduation tomorrow. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has given a very different look to this year's graduation season, as many schools across the country have had to cancel their in-person celebrations. But one Catholic college has found a way to modify its commencement ceremony for these changing times. Tomorrow, Wyoming Catholic College will honor its class of 2020 with a socially distanced commencement, giving students the opportunity to have an in-person graduation. Joining me now on Skype to talk more about this is the president of Wyoming Catholic College, Dr. Glenn Arbery. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Well, so many schools have not been able to hold in-person ceremonies this year. What does being able to send off the class of 2020 in this way mean to you?
Oh, it means a huge amount, because Wyoming Catholic College is based on all kinds of interpersonal connections with the students. They do horsemanship and all kinds of outdoor activities, as well as great books. So to get them back here with their class is just huge. I don't think we could have done it anywhere but in Wyoming.
What's the response been like from the students?
They have been clamoring to get back here. So when they were able to do this, and they found out a couple of weeks ago, they were delighted. So they're very excited to be here.
That's wonderful. I know that you're being very careful and following the precautions advised by the governor and the Wyoming Department of Health. Can you share with us some of what you're doing to keep everyone safe? And also, can you tell us how it's changed from graduations in the past?
Well, the first thing, the graduations in the past, of course, were big events with 300 or 400 people, all the parents and kinsmen and undergraduates. This year, we've had to limit it just to the seniors and a few faculty, keeping within the state and local guidelines that govern how to respond to COVID-19. So we're doing social distancing. When they're in buildings, they wear a mask. It's the usual things, but we're being very careful to observe what the state and local folks tell us to do.
Yeah, and I know since the COVID-19 pandemic, the students have gone from not using their cell phones on campus, except maybe in emergencies, to online learning. Can you talk about that, what that experience has been like for them?
What a jarring kind of turn of events, right? We're the campus known for having no cell phones, and suddenly we're plunged into Zoom meetings and cell phone conversations. Yeah, it's all been pretty ironic. But I have to say the transition went very smoothly, especially after the first week. That was rough, but then things settled down. Our dean, Kyle Watchett, managed things beautifully. So the students ended the semester on a good note, I think.
That's good to hear. We're all getting used to this new normal for sure. I know that EWTN's own Father Mitch Pacwa will deliver tomorrow's virtual commencement address. Can you talk about why you chose Father Mitch?
Oh, Father Mitch is famous, and he's, of course, the kind of priest who covers the whole range of the intellectual life that we pursue here at WCC. And also, Father Mitch was eager to come because he loves hunting and fishing. And I know in that regard, he is as disappointed as we are. So we'll have him out here as soon as we can.
Well, what do you hope your graduates will carry with them as they begin this new phase of their lives?
I think they are very well prepared in terms of their leadership education, the background they have, the range of experiences that they bring from here. So I hope they can be a real leaven in the world when they go out from Wyoming Catholic in these very troubling and dark days that the nation has faced.
Glenn, one last question before I let you go. Do you have any advice for new graduates everywhere?
Well, I think they need to remember faith, hope, and charity, and especially hope in these times. Our consolation is not simply in ourselves, but in our Lord. And we have to wait to see how things are going to turn out. But a disposition of hope is certainly going to be crucial to anything that can happen.
Well, Glenn, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate this time. Dr. Glenn Arbery, president of Wyoming Catholic College, thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy.
Catholics across Alaska will become united under a new archdiocese. This week, Pope Francis merged the Archdiocese of Anchorage and the Diocese of Juneau. He also appointed a bishop familiar with the region to lead the faithful. Correspondent Mark Irons reports. Mark?
Tracy, Bishop Andrew Belisario has led the Diocese of Juneau for over 2 years. The diocese has the fewest number of Catholics in the country, but the bishop will take on the new role of Archbishop and lead even more Alaskans.
The Archdiocese of Anchorage and the Diocese of Juneau are merging to become the newest archdiocese in the U.S.
It really is the unification of the people of God in a good way.
Bishop Andrew Belisario of Juneau tapped by the Holy Father to lead the newly formed church territory in Alaska.
I was honored, of course, that Pope Francis would choose me.
He was notified of the move by the Pope's ambassador to the U.S., Archbishop Christophe Pierre, who told me the proposal to merge Anchorage and Juneau first came from Alaska's bishops.
They had a lot of discussions with the priests, the deacons, the lay people. It was a very, it lasted maybe 1 or 2 years.
The Archdiocese of Anchorage has a little over 24,000 Catholics. Archbishop Pierre says the Diocese of Juneau, with fewer Catholics spread out over nearly 40,000 square miles, was becoming difficult to manage.
The problem is Juneau is a huge territory, but very, very few Catholics, about 10,000 Catholics, and a few number of priests.
Archbishop Pierre tells me merging the two dioceses also made sense for financial reasons. Bishop Belisario is excited for Alaskan Catholics.
Especially because it's creating a new archdiocese. It's not one absorbing another, but it's creating something new and fresh.
The bishop says that could build excitement for evangelization, vocations, and give the clergy more opportunities to get involved in different communities, which in this beautiful, expansive state can sometimes only be reached by air. Distances aside, a new archdiocese has the potential to unite.
My experience is anytime you bring Catholics together, it's a very positive experience.
Alaska also includes the Diocese of Fairbanks, which takes up the majority of this massive state, more than 400,000 square miles. Bishop Belisario asked for prayers for the new Anchorage Juneau archdiocese. I'm told many of the logistics are still being worked out. The bishop will officially become archbishop at his installation mass, and the date for that has not yet been set, in part because of the coronavirus. Tracy.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Correspondent Mark Irons reporting. And a reminder that EWTN broadcasts Mass throughout the day. Mass airs at 8 a.m., noon, and 7 p.m. Eastern. We are also airing other special programming, and you can find our schedule at EWTN.com. There you will also find Eucharistic adoration throughout the day. Up next, how Gregorian chant is making a comeback via the internet. And finally tonight, 2 Dominican friars are hitting all the right notes. The 2 seminarians have been uploading videos to YouTube of them chanting in their monastery in the town of Freiburg, Switzerland. The videos have been receiving thousands of views from people watching all over the world. EWTN News correspondent Colin Flynn reports.
Gregorian chant is made to pray. It is in itself already a prayer.
Brother Stefan Ansinger and Brother Alexander Frisato are reviving the Gregorian chants of their Dominican order's tradition by uploading videos of them chanting to YouTube.
This tradition presents the revelation of our church, the tradition of our church in a beautiful manner. So the texts that we actually sing are from Holy Scripture and from the tradition of the Church. So by singing this text, we are presenting the truths and the beauties of our faith. We have, in the order, we have 800 years of Gregorian tradition.
Their videos are reaching people all over the world, believers and non-believers.
So the beauty of this is also there are lots of people who don't really believe, and they are really touched by the beauty of the chant itself. So that means that something of the truth of these beautiful texts is being transmitted by the music itself. And if we believe in theology, we say that God is really beauty himself, then everything which is really beautiful points directly to God. And I think if we want to bring Christ to the world, we can do it through beauty.
Colin Flynn, EWTN News Nightly.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Memorial Day is on Monday here in the United States, and we will have a special edition of News Nightly. We hope you have a safe, long weekend. Good night, and God bless.